So, have the Indians lost some people who used to buy tickets? Or is it too early to tell?
The
weather's been horrible.
There's two things. The weather hasn't been great. The Browns have really captured everybody's imagination because of some big-name guys.
Yep.
And the Indians were hurt, and their starting pitching hasn't been quite as dominant as you'd hoped it'd be.
Absolutely. All right, so why have the Indians seemingly lost their fans? We asked that as our Facebook question of the day. John Switz says, at present, we're playing AAA no-name ball players before getting Frankie Lindor and the ineffective Jose Ramirez. We are dependent on the lockdown starting pitching with a very sketchy bullpen. We play in the weakest division in baseball, and the early season weather has been somewhat marginal at best. Without Carlos Santana and in this present lineup, it would be in last place in your own division. Not last, but not least. But hey, the Indians play in Brownstown. Carmen Tolino says, this is a great question, Les. It's one of the great mysteries to me. The Indians had an extensive run of highly competitive playoff teams, and yet the ballpark is half empty on most nights. The weather is generally pleasant. No, it isn't. It's a great family activity. The Browns have been the poster child for an unfathomable degree of ineptitude for decades, and the weather is awful, and yet they still fill the stadium. I just don't get it. Well, football weather is not, you know what it is. What Dennis Davis says, we've become spoiled. The Dolans have done a nice job of keeping the team competitive while holding their budget steady, and very pleased with their efforts. Ed Watkins, correctly or not, fans have lost confidence in the Dolans' ability and desire to win at all costs. Mark Porman says, the worst ownership in baseball. How come a good owner can let go of 3, 4, 5, and 6 hitters in the lineup? Penny Young says, it's April, it's 40 degrees, school's in session. Let the weather and the bats warm up. And finally, Gregory Meese says, wow, I can't believe all the comments. I'm 68 years old and I've lived through what would be called the worst baseball of the last century. We've been to the World Series 3 times in the last 20 years, and in the playoffs many more times. I believe Cleveland is in a baseball city. All they care about is football. Your thoughts?
I understand what they were trying to do, being the Indians, with their off-season moves. And
or lack thereof.
Part of it was they were trying to pare down payroll, without question.
Yep.
You can't say that any other way. They were also trying to get younger guys that would fill the gap that was created by trading away some of their higher-end prospects to get talent to go for it the last 2 years. So they went for it the last 2 years. They won 1 playoff game. I think they went a little overboard, and there were a couple of moves that I don't think went the way they wanted
Dave,
to.
if I'm Paul Dolan and Antonetti and Chernoff come up to him and say, look, we think we're pretty much a lock to win the division, so why not, and we can still win it because of our pitching, so why not pare it down and get rid of the big salaries of Encarnacion and some of the other people? If you're Paul Dolan and you're convinced that you're going to win the division, whether you have those guys or not, it's tough not to do it.
Right. And again, they did put a lot of money into the last 2 years, and they won 1 playoff game.
Right.
So I get that. Having said that, none of the young guys that they went out and got have transferred into the big league
No, they
club
haven't done it
yet. And again, I like what you see of Mercado. I think he's a guy that's really intriguing. He's a center fielder, leadoff hitter. You know, he's near the top of the International League in stolen bases.
Right now, are you convinced that the Indians will win the division?
No,
I'm not either.
I'm not.
I'm not either.
And again, part of it is probably skewed because of what I've seen the first couple, the first month. That lineup before Lindor came back and before they got healthy, it was ugly.
All right, let's look at the players they've lost. Yandy Diaz comes up number 1. Should have never traded him. That's not sour grapes. I've been saying it all along, and I know you did too, Dave.
Yeah, the one thing about him is you have all these analytics that measure exit velocity.
Yeah.
His exit velocity, it's showing you how hard he hits the ball, was one of the highest in baseball.
Yeah.
They didn't like the fact that he couldn't get it up in the air.
No, well, he's gotten it up the air 6 times this year.
He's hitting line drive home runs.
Yeah.
He's hitting the ball so hard it doesn't have to go up in the air.
6 homers, 11 RBIs, 16 runs scored. All right, Edwin Encarnacion, let's take a look at him. He's now with Seattle. 241 batting average in 21 games, 6 home runs also, 15 RBIs, and 15 runs scored.
Well,
and
keep in mind that you brought Santana back and you saved some money in that one, so that's
same
excusable.
Then we go to Michael Brantley, who I thought the Indians could have afforded to keep. Playing with Houston, the Indians will be down there this weekend. 310 batting average, 4 home runs, and 15 RBIs, and 3 stolen bases for Michael Brantley.
Yeah, he went 15, 17 million for a couple of years.
Yeah,
so
2 years.
Again,
it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
All right, I never thought Josh Donaldson would be part of the equation, making over 21
million for a year, yeah.
Although he crushed a couple of balls yesterday over the weekend against the Indians with Atlanta, and he's got 4 home runs right now, 7 RBIs. I don't question that, but I do question the attempt on Brantley and Yandy Diaz.
Yeah, and again, you'd be silly to argue that. Again, I think what they were trying to do, they're trying to get guys that are position players. There's a vast wasteland of young guys, particularly young outfielders. That's what they targeted when they went out and traded. Martin is not going to be under contract after this year, so they got Johnson in the Gomes deal. You got Mercado in another deal at the trade deadline last year. Those are pretty talented young guys that I'm intrigued by. But I can certainly understand the fans upset at what went from the Indians lineup.
We're coming back.